Hey worldwide, we are Maiko and Kulia, Tuitupo. We're so excited to be here with you guys tonight, and it's just such an honor and a privilege to be on a worldwide platform, just to be able to be trusted, to be able to share our story, where we come from, the things that we have gone through, the things that we've overcome to get to where we are today. And so
hopefully build some belief.
Yeah, hopefully it can build some belief. And I would never get on a platform without saying our thank yous and our gratitude to those that have come before us. And so first and foremost, worldwide, for being able to put on this amazing production and everything that goes on behind closed doors. We're so grateful for you guys. But then just the thin thread that has got us to where we are today with our incredible upline, starting with Ron and Georgia Lee Pereira, Jim and Bobby Pereira, Glenn and Joya Baker, Trevor and Lexi Baker, Jason Allison Montano, Val and Shauna Tia, and our amazing sponsors, Vaughn and Riley Greening. We come from a great lineage of giants that we're so grateful for. And so just like Maiko was saying today, we hope that we can just give you hope that we can just touch at least one person with the things that we have gone through, because I think that it's so important to understand that it's not necessarily your successes that impress people. It's the challenges and the things that you've overcome that actually empower people. So we're going to talk a lot about that.
You've probably seen the highlight reel, and we're going to talk more about what the real story looked like of leading to the highlight reel. So, and we truly believe that your successes will impress people, but your failures empower people, and your mistakes empower people. So we got a lot of empowerment today, which is phenomenal.
Yeah. But I love what Darcy talks about with just like our amazing upline, that everything good in our life is because of those relationships. And we're going to talk a lot about relationships today as well. So Maiko and I, we come from two totally different worlds, different backgrounds, probably even different mindsets, I guess you would say. And so it's going to be a ride today. So buckle up, Buttercup. It's going to be a good time. But we saw this business, we saw this opportunity about 5.5 years ago. We were 24 years old. I was going to school. I was in nursing school.
We had one kid. We had KJ was, 3?
Yeah, KJ would have been about 3, and then I was pregnant with our daughter at that point in time. But yeah, like I was saying, I was going to nursing school. I was a couple months away from graduating with my RN degree, and I was going to follow that path because I've always been around healthcare my whole life. What else? I was a CNA, so I was wiping people's bums all night long when I wasn't at school, so that was a good time. And we were both working full time. Maiko wasn't going to school because you don't want to go to school, but I was going to school. We were handing off the kid handing off the keys, and we never really saw each other, but in reality, it was probably better that way, because way back when, we didn't even necessarily like each other at that time. And I think the feelings were pretty mutual with that. Yeah, do you want to...
Where I was, I was just working odd-end jobs, doing construction, whatever I needed to do on paper, but I was a street pharmacist behind closed doors, which was phenomenal. I guess we were in survival mode. We were a young punk couple that seen an opportunity, and Kulia was a little skeptical when we first seen the opportunity. For me, I was open to anything. I was like, man, as long as it's legal or close, I was like, I'll do it. And that's kind of where I was when I first seen this. And I would just say we were in a dark place, because our backgrounds were totally different. Trevor asked me, he goes, where do you think you'd have been when you were 25? I was like, honestly, dead or in jail, based on how I was living my life prior to seeing this, and prior to earning mentorship and really being willing to work on ourselves and work on our lives and take ownership and accountability over where we were going. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about where you started out, and I'll talk about my story.
Yeah, so for me, I grew up in Utah basically majority of my life. We moved around a lot because of my dad's jobs and his schooling and whatnot. So he does anesthesia. So growing up, I didn't really have a hard life. We had everything that we really needed. I didn't have to really struggle, which I'm so grateful for my parents for being able to give us the best with what they knew was available at that point in time. And so I'm very grateful for our upbringing. But the problem with that is my dad wasn't really around, so I didn't really have father power in the home. And so when I got into an environment like this, I saw a Trevor and Lexi Baker and a Jason Allison Montano, and I saw a Glenn and Joya Baker, and the relationships that they not only had with each other, but the relationships that they had with their kids. And that's really just what I longed for. I wanted to be able to have dinner every night as a family. That was something that was super important to me, because we were always playing sports, we were always going different places, and so we never actually had, I guess, stability in our home that way. Financially, it was okay, right? But time-wise, it was non-existent. And so I was always a good kid. I got good grades. I did what I was told to do. I was not a free thinker at all. And so the worldwide system has taught me how to think for myself a lot more. But that was just ingrained into me. I mean, excellence was the standard, and anything below an A was unacceptable in my life. And so that turned me kind of into a people pleaser. And so I never really could think for myself. I was always trying to please other people, but then that was taking power away from myself. And so when I saw this opportunity, it was actually the first time in my life, besides marrying Maiko, that I actually was rooted in what I was doing and where I was going. And so I didn't really care about the outside noise that was going to happen with me going against the grain. And so it ruffled a lot of people's feathers in my family. And so we had a lot of negative family members. We had a lot of negative friends because it was so outside of what I would normally do. But I just knew what I had my hands on, and I just understood that my family, my friends, they didn't know what they know because they haven't been educated the way that I was educated. And I couldn't expect them to understand my path when they hadn't been given my vision at that point in time. So yeah, we were taught to achieve in life and anything that we did, whether that was sports, whether that was school. So I think that helped a lot, both of us, I think, with just having that work habit, being able to transition it into the build of our business. So, yeah.
Yeah, my background is totally different than Kulia's. I mean, she couldn't get anything less than an A. I only got an A in PE, so that was the only A I got, and lunch. But really, I guess my background is totally different. And, my mom was in and out of prison my whole life. She was strung out on drugs. She was addicted, to some pretty hard drugs. And, she got over it when I was about 23, she got out of prison. My dad was deported when I was 9 years old. I mean, he was extremely abusive. Literally, my mom doesn't have any teeth because he beat her so bad, and just always known him to be abusive and alcoholic. And so that's kind of how I grew up. I went to a different school every year of my life. Never really got the chance to make great friends with people. And I found myself, and I used to tell myself I would never go down that path, but I unintentionally seen myself start to go down that path because of my association, because of people I would surround myself with. And, I've never been a gangster, but I come from an association of people that just didn't make the greatest decisions, been shot at before, and which is what I loved about this opportunity. When I first met my mentors, they said, it doesn't matter where you come from. You can come from any background or, any skin color or any education level, or, you can come from anywhere. You can really build something for yourself. I remember hearing in my first board plan that you can do this whether you came from Yale or jail. And I was like, well, I graduated from Yale and then I got a job, you know what I mean? So I'm like, I came from one of those places, and that's what really gave me hope, is understanding that, like Kulia said, that you're welcome to come as you are, but you're not welcome to stay as you are if you really want to make changes and you really want to build something for yourself. So, that was me. I was, all I did was smoke weed, play video games, just live for the moment, hang out with my friends and my boys. And that's why I'm so grateful for the worldwide system that's just been able to help us focus on, and by the way, not saying that I was a bad person because I was there, but I believe that I was a good person that never had a shot or an example, to really understand what change looked like. And that's what I love about the system, is it shows anyone that you can change, anyone can be better. And that's what I truly believe Worldwide Dream Builders is about, is not proving to people that we're better than people, but proving to people that we can be better. And that's what I think it's about. So, but yeah, that's a little bit of my background, where I come from. I have 16 brothers and sisters. I mean, my mom's got 5 different baby daddies. My dad's got 7 different baby mamas. So,
and you keep finding new siblings.
I found a new sibling last month, found another sibling 2 months ago. So yeah. We shall see how many more there are. Stay tuned, which is phenomenal.
But yeah, so like Maiko said, that's a little bit about our background. So we met, so I was actually in college playing basketball, and he was in Hawaii, like working construction, doing stuff for...
I was just doing construction, and we were at a party, and my pickup line, I asked her if you wanted to smoke.
And I said yes. So
I said, want to smoke? And she said, absolutely. That's how we met.
And the rest is history. But really, we were both home for the holidays. It was like a New Year's Eve party. We had like mutual friends. I was always like, I had daddy issues, so I was always like around his association of people. Like I was from the totally opposite side of the tracks. And so I'd kind of go over into the, I don't know what you would call it, the ghetto.
To the ghetto.
To be able to hang out over there. And I saw him and I was like, okay, yeah, we're going to do this. So
she wanted to be ghetto so bad.
So we did a long distance relationship thing because I went back to college. He went back to Hawaii. And I mean, we were just kind of friends. We weren't dating or anything like that. And he got another girlfriend. I was kind of doing my thing out in college, like I said, and we came home. He was actually in jail, like when I came home, and you'll talk about that. Do you want to talk about why you were in jail?
No.
No? Don't want to talk about that? Cool.
Bad decisions.
So he was in jail. And then after he got out, we kind of just hit it off, started talking, started dating, got pregnant pretty young with our son, who's now 8 years old. So we were like 20 years old when that happened. And so shortly after that, we got married. And a couple years later, my cousin actually...
Well, our marriage was not going great. But when we first got married, I think, in the beginning we might have gotten married out. Well, we had our son, and then... we loved each other, but I think it was still we were just both very immature. We had a horrible relationship. We weren't on the same page. We never discussed what our values were, what was important to us. And, I still wanted to live the same life that I did before I knew her, and she wanted me to be this amazing, all-American guy, which was not me.
I just wanted you to grow up.
Yeah.
That was the biggest thing because
Absolutely.
Having a kid young, I was forced to grow up, right? I was forced to be able to be responsible, and I couldn't live the life that we were living anymore, right?
Yeah, and then that's when Vaughn, you had a conversation with Vaughn, and Kulia talked to Vaughn about, she was like, man, he was talking about some successful people or something. She's like, you want to go to this meeting? And I was, she didn't say anything by then, but she set up a meeting, and the day of the meeting came up. And she was like, hey, Vaughn said that there's like some meeting with some successful people. Do you want to go to that? And I was like, absolutely. And she's like, yeah, it sounds kind of sketchy. I don't know if I want to go. And so I was like, yeah, my life sucks. So I turned off the PlayStation and I was like, I want to go to the meeting. I want to go learn what they're doing because this ain't it. You know what I mean? So I was like, this is not how I want to live. And so we went to the meeting and, we went through a process. We were educated on Amway Corporation. We were educated on Worldwide. We understood everything. And we were excited. Yeah, it made sense to us. We got in business, and then boom, we didn't do nothing for a couple months.
Because we realized that it was going to take hard work, that it was going to take change, and we weren't scared of hard work. Right?
I wasn't afraid of hard work, but I was afraid of change for sure. I was afraid of, I was afraid of a lot of things. I was afraid of what everyone might think. I was just afraid of change. I was afraid of failure. I was afraid of becoming a person I never thought I could be. I was afraid of a lot of things. I didn't even like to read books. I was afraid of putting a suit on. I just felt so uncomfortable wearing a suit. I felt uncomfortable, around positive people. I was uncomfortable around everything. I thought it was so weird.
Why are people so nice?
Yeah, the environment I grew up in was an environment of survival, and I realized that Worldwide was an environment of thriving. And so it was totally weird for me to surround myself with positive people that were excited for other people. And that took me a little getting used to. I used to show up and, people were like, hi, Maiko. I'm like, dude, why are you saying hi to me? I don't like you. That's how I was. And, which is why I believe it took me a while, for me to be able to marinate in the system and, just to realize that, you need a thick skin and a soft heart in order for you to build this business or in order for you to move forward. Because I think most people come into business and they have the opposite. It's like we have a hard heart and a thin skin, right? Where we get offended about everything and get bothered by everything, and we don't choose to see someone else's perspective or where they're coming from. And that's something that I had to work on a lot when we first got in business. So first, 6, 7, 8 months, we didn't do much, which is why we didn't expect much, because we were very honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
I think Kulia and I, we've never asked where the results were from the work we didn't do, because anytime we weren't where we wanted to be, we were honest enough to look in the mirror and go, we don't deserve it. We didn't do anything. So why should we be asking for some results if we haven't done 100% of what they've taught us to do? And so for a little while, we just sat in the system, marinated.
We always showed up. We always did our ditto. It took us a little bit to be able to start to build those habits because that was very outside of our comfort zone. It was outside of anything that we had ever learned. Two things that
I can say we have always done is we've always showed up to everything and we've always had a blueprint in place. Can't say we read all the time or listen to audios or, obviously when we started getting results, we were doing those things. But in the beginning, that was what we struggled with. We struggled with consistency. We struggled with building habits into our life. And, we truly believe that this is what it's all about, is building those habits that are going to help you build a business for yourself. So,
yeah, and I mean, on our road to going diamond, it didn't necessarily mean that we didn't have fears or we didn't have doubts or we didn't have feelings. It was just being able to tell ourselves, like, when we did get consistent, that we're going to do things anyways, right? So
yeah, I remember the first time I shared my story was after FED, which was, 5 months when we were in business already? It was like 5-6 months we were in business. And I went to an FED, and I was so inspired by watching Pete and Rachel Hirschman and Ryan and Noella Olenek walk as the brand new diamonds. And I remember, it wasn't even anything that anyone said that day, but I remember looking at pictures of lifestyle of Pete's background and thinking to myself, if this guy could do it, why couldn't I do it? Mm-hmm. And I think, I think sometimes people might look at, I think there's two types of people, where sometimes people might look at someone and go, oh, I can't do what they did. And the other type is when they look at someone that's done something, they think to themselves, well, if they could, why couldn't I? And I watched Pete, and I think what was hard for me is I seen people like Trevor and Jason, that they came from great backgrounds, they came from great, parents, and they came from a great environment, which was hard for me to relate because I was like, well, I didn't come from that. And then I seen Pete's background where he just talked about, the things that him and Rachel went through, and I thought to myself, well, if he can, why couldn't I? And I think it kind of woke up the dog in me. And, I think that's what it is. It's like, well, if that guy can do it, then anyone can. And listening to people like Scott Harimoto, listening to them speak, and I'm like, man, if he could do it, I could do it. And, it just inspired me in a huge way. And I remember it was my first FED out in Ontario, California, and then after that, I was in the airport. I had the weirdest conversation in the world, but, it was a win for me. Because I remember I was like, I'm going to make someone aware now. I'm going to share my story with someone. And this one guy was at the airport, and I was like, hey. He's like, hey. I was like, you going to Salt Lake? We were in a terminal that literally said like everyone's going to Salt Lake. Yeah. He's like, yeah. I'm like, cool. You like Bob Marley? He's wearing a Bob Marley shirt. He's like, yeah. And he kept on taking his headphones out the whole time, like why are you talking to me? And then he goes, what are you going to Salt Lake for? And I'm like, I was just here because I met a couple that were, And I went into it, and he goes, okay. And I was like, yeah. And he walked away. He just totally walked away from me. And
then he called me.
And I called Kulia, and I was like, I shared my story. See, guys, sometimes people like get all weirded out, or they're like, oh, that totally sucked. But see, I realized that it was my first time, so I knew it was going to suck. Because I remember a long time ago hearing in one of the trainings or board plans, thinking like, oh man, I might suck. And I remember Trevor saying, don't worry about if you're going to suck or not. He goes, you absolutely will suck. So I was totally okay with that, and just realized that if I can do it once, I can do it 1,000,000 times, as long as I'm willing to sharpen that axe and get better and better and better and work on that. And so that was the very first time I shared my story.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of times people are waiting for this like one pivotal moment to be able to happen in their journey, and I don't necessarily think it's going to be one pivotal moment. It's going to be an accumulation of pivotal moments, and that
Absolutely.
was one of them, right? And not only that, not only going, but making the decision to go, because I was actually just had our daughter at that point in time, so I was in the hospital, and you decided to go.
Mm-hmm.
You decided to go when a lot of fathers probably wouldn't, right? And so I think that built a lot of conviction for you.
Yeah, that was huge.
Being able to go out on your own, right? Because we didn't have a team, obviously, at that point in time. So there's that. And then there was when Jason had a choice to walk away from his job.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when he chose to walk away from his job, when I seen that, I just thought to myself, I was like, well, if he could do it, why couldn't I? Mm-hmm. And that's just how I choose to look at everyone or anything. It's like, well, if they could do something, I view this as we're all human beings. If they could do it, then why couldn't I? If that's what your dream is, or if that's what your vision for yourself is.
And it was just really when the dream became a reality.
Yeah, it just came more of a reality to us to realize, because before we just kind of heard of talks of these things like, oh, you're able to do this, you can do this, you can do that. And when I seen Montano do it, I thought to myself, okay, well, I've seen it now. So now there's no way that I can go back and say that it wasn't the truth or it wasn't real or whatever the case was. So, yeah, what else do you want to talk about in regards to this stuff?
Yeah, I think that's kind of like where we were at. And if you want to touch on just the craziness, the things that we've overcome over.
Yeah, man. So it was 6, 7, 8 months. It was somewhere around there. That was when all that stuff started happening. We seen Jason's big day. We seen Free Enterprise Day. Like you said, when I went to FED, my daughter was born 2 days before that, 2 or 3 days before that. Kulia was still in the hospital. And I think that was just one of those things where it was like, okay, if you're going to show up to FED and your daughter was just born, your wife's in the hospital, it's like, you better treat this serious. And that was when, I remember going back home and just looking myself in the mirror going, what are you doing? And, what are we doing here? Why are you even here? And so just making the decision that we were going to actually change. And so we started making good decisions for ourselves. I wrapped up my PlayStation. That was when we sold our TV. And not saying that anyone has to do these things, but this is when we decided we were going to get all in and get focused on what we were doing and where we were going.
And just understanding that it was like not forever, it was just a short amount of time. Because, when we first saw it, like we were talking about before, I caught a vision and I realized like, okay, we're going to change. But I was so nervous to actually change, to actually get out and get outside my comfort zone, because I was very comfortable inside my comfort zone. And I think I was kind of just waiting for Maiko to kind of just start to lead our family. And so I was like waiting for him, like, hey, like, are you gonna go build us a future? Can you go do something? And at first it wasn't happening because he was going through his own challenges, his own things behind closed doors. And so I realized that I was like, okay, well, I don't want to wait forever. Like, I want to be able to be at home with my kids, and I want to be able to actually raise them and instill our values into them. And so kind of just the mindset that I had at that point, as I said, if it's meant to be, then it's up to me. And so I decided to start sharing my story with people, start getting consistent, start communicating with, at that point, it was Allison Montano, and just realizing that I was willing to carry the torch, whether it was permanently or temporarily, for our family.
Yeah, so Kulia actually was the first one to start being core and treating our business seriously. She actually sponsored our first 2 legs. And that was kind of what woke me up too. That was huge too, because I thought to myself, I was like, well, I'm not going to get on a worldwide stage and my wife's going to be like, I did everything, and I sat there like, I was along with the ride. I didn't want to do that. So, I thought to myself, okay, I need to get up and do something as well. I need to lead my family as well. And so it was right around that time when we started making good decisions for ourselves. We delayed gratification. We drove around our crappy cars for the longest time. All the way until we went diamond, right? All the way until we went diamond, we drove around my 2006 Saturn Ion that was falling apart, and your 2015 your Hyundai Santa Fe that had over 200,000 miles on it, and literally the wheels fell off of it.
I drove it till the wheels fell off. It was great.
And we were, fully qualified diamonds. We stayed in a little 1,000 square foot apartment. We got rid of our TVs. We got rid of our video games. You didn't do your hair, you didn't do your nails all the way until we went diamond, and we just said no. No one told us that we had to do these things. By the way, no one forced us any of these things. We just heard people talk about sometimes the greatest yes in the future is a no right now. And for Kulia and I, we thought about it and we said we don't want there to be any reason we don't make it. So we decided to take everything off of our plate and really only put the things on that were the most important to us right now, which was our faith, our marriage, and our business and our jobs.
Yeah, and we realized that, we think that human beings work best and operate best in survival mode. So we kind of put our backs against the wall and had this be our one thing.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times people think that easy breeds efficient, and I think easy breeds complacent. I don't think it makes people more efficient. I think it makes people more complacent. But yeah, we had tons of times, where I remember just even trying to open up to Jason. I was like, hey, Jason, I have to tell you something. He's like, yeah, what is it? And I was like, I smoke weed. He's like, yeah, I know that. He's like, I was waiting for you to tell me. Because I used to think, I came from a world of judgment where everyone judged you all the time. And I realized that people here weren't judging me, like based on my habits, for me smoking cigarettes and me smoking weed and drinking and playing video games, doing everything I did. I used to think that Worldwide was judging me, my personality based on what I did. And I realized that that wasn't the case, that they weren't judging whether I was a good or bad person, but they were judging and helping me understand that it was hurting my productivity or helping my productivity. It wasn't good or bad. It was productive or not, right? Which is things that I started to realize that I needed to change for myself.
And for me, I'm not perfect by any means, but I had to learn to be able to stop expecting so much out of Maiko and stop nagging you and just trying to make you do things that you didn't want to do. And I just remember always kidding Allison and being like, he's not doing what he said that he was going to do, or doing this or doing that. And she's like, just leave him alone. Let Worldwide work on his heart and work on yours. And I was like, oh,
she's like,
okay.
Hey, who'd you talk to today? I'm like, nobody. She's like, did you forget? And I'm like, oh yeah, I did forget. Let me go talk to somebody now. No, I didn't forget. I'm not doing it. I was just afraid of change. That's just where we were. We just had to work on ourselves a lot. So, yeah. When
we realized that we were on the same team and not competing against each other, I think that's when things started to move forward.
Mm-hmm. And I remember in the beginning stages of us, really getting serious about building our business, we went through our sphere of influence like crazy. We shared our story with anyone and everyone we could, because at the end of the day, for us, we were not great people. Like we weren't good at talking to people. I was so afraid of talking to people. I was the type of person, if I was at a party, I would just hold up the wall. I'm like, make sure this wall doesn't go anywhere, so I'll just stand over here. I didn't like to talk. I mean, I couldn't even order my own food at a restaurant. Like, we used to literally go to restaurants and the waitress would be like, what would you like, sir? And I'm like...
You just look at me.
I'd look at Kulia and she knew what I wanted. She's like, he wants a steak. How would you like that cooked? I'm like, medium. She would tell him, medium. Yeah. So I didn't like to talk to anybody. I just felt like my opinion didn't really mean much. I didn't really talk much. So in the beginning stages, that's what we were working on, is self-image and personal growth and development, and just realizing that this hasn't... Because I used to think in my mind, like, I have to be this person. And it wasn't until I realized that success doesn't look or sound like anybody. It's just someone that's willing to go through the journey that you're going to have to go through. And I realized it was just hard work. And if I just showed the plan enough times and enough people would get it, then we would build a business. And that's what I believed with all my heart. So we just developed a work ethic, and we started going out there, sharing our story, bringing our sphere of influence through a process. And we had a lot of negative people. We had a lot of negative friends, a lot of people that just, said, we'll see how it goes. And I said, you're right, we will see how it goes. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, like
just beginning stages?
Yeah, like what I was saying before, my dad, one of the biggest influencers at that point in my life, was so negative. Like, he was so negative with whatever, like Amway, with Worldwide, with like, I knew someone that did that, or I knew this, or I knew that. And so it really like hurt.
He fired you from you were his assistant?
Yeah, it really hurt like my self-confidence, being like, okay, if my dad doesn't even believe in me, like, what am I doing? And so that's why I had to lean in so much tighter to mentorship, because he was so upset that I decided to step away from school and build this business like full time, because I realized, like, okay, what was my end goal? Was my end goal to be a nurse and to, work 12s and to do that? Or was my end goal to...
Not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just figuring out what life you wanted was, and the life he envisioned for us was not the same life that we envisioned for us. Yeah, and so he was probably one of the biggest negative people in our journey. We literally had to have a conversation with him where we sat him down and said, you don't have to support us. You don't have to even be positive. But if you keep being negative, we're not coming around anymore. You're not going to see us anymore. And or we're going to limit our time with you, because really nobody wants anyone negative around them, right?
But because we were able to plant our flag and to be able to have our roots run deep, and actually prove through our actions that we were building something. And it was hard. It was hard during the journey, because they didn't really see any external results. Because like Maiko talked about, we delayed gratification so much that they didn't really necessarily see.
It almost looked like we were going backwards.
Yeah, totally. And so they're like, is it even working? Like, what are you guys even doing?
You went from living in this nice house to this small apartment. You went from having all these big TVs to no TV. So it kind of looked like we were going backwards in society's eyes.
And then now, because of what we've built, we're able to bless them immensely, right?
Yeah,
and
which
just
is
being
great.
able to be a big blessing in their life. Because for us, we just wanted to be a vessel in other people's life, whether it was with our time or whether it was with our money.
Mm-hmm. But then we just got on the journey of really taking it serious. We went Eagle in about 3 months from when we really started treating our business serious. We went double Eagle 3 months after that. So in a span of 6 months, we went double Eagle. We were fired up. We were excited. We were working so hard, man. We
didn't even finish platinum qualification.
We were working so hard. We were almost afraid to tell people what our schedule actually looked like. When people ask, like, how much time do you put in your business? I'm like, we put every minute into our business. Because that's what we did. And that's what happened for us. So we went double Eagle pretty fast. I remember showing up to meetings and people we were modeling for would be like, are you high? What's wrong with you guys? Are you tired? Are you okay? Because our eyes would be bloodshot red because we worked all day long. We got off. We modeled meetings from 5 p.m. till midnight. We, hung out with our kids till 2 a.m. And then, we went to sleep and woke up at 6 the next day and went right back to work all day long and did meetings all the way until 12 again. We'd be doing meet and greets and follow-ups from 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we'd go home and do registrations and, registrations and budgets and, phases of registration and just being so exhausted. And, and I think that was a breakthrough for us, was being willing to be exhausted, being willing to go through that chaos. That was a very pivotal moment for us. And so going double Eagle, and then after we went double Eagle, I remember we came back from family reunion. We went to our first moving up as new double Eagles. I was a fly on the wall. I still didn't even say much there. If you ask everyone that was at that moving up, they're like, he didn't talk. Because I didn't. The only time I really learned how to talk was when I was sharing my story. Like, I had someone one time, they were like, so have you ever had an unintentional conversation? I'm like, no. I'm like, either it's about something or I'm not talking at all. So, yeah, you know, we went double eagle. We came back and 5 of our legs quit right after that. Yep. We went from 12 legs to came right back to 7. And that was a huge pivotal moment because, you know, for Kulia and I, we didn't look at it and say, oh, look, it's not working. We looked at ourselves in the mirror and said, we need to qualify people better. We need to make sure that we find more of the right people.
We need to grow.
Yeah, we need to grow. We need to do more. And so,
because we realized that our external growth was never going to supersede our internal growth, and we definitely had a lot of growing to do.
Yeah, because I wasn't even really honestly reading. I wasn't really reading like consistently or at that point either. I think we went double eagle on just sheer work ethic. But then when we came back down to 7 legs, we realized like, okay, maybe we do need to act. You know, this was me having a conversation with myself. Maybe I should read those books. You know, maybe I should listen to those audios. And you know, so then when we started actually personally growing and developing, we watched our business start growing a lot more. And I remember we got stuck at like double eagle 5,000, 6,000. We talked to one of our cross-line cousins, and he goes, "Man, when are you guys going platinum?" And we're like, "Oh, we should have been platinums a long time ago. Like, you know, it should have happened a long time." Because we went from, when we actually took it serious, we went from 0 to 1,000 PV in like a month and a half. Mm-hmm. And then 1,000 PV to 2,500 the next month, 2,500 to 4,000 like the next month after that.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like literally in a span of 4 or 5 months, we went from 0 to 5,000, 6,000 PV, and then we ended up staying there for like 4 or 5, 6 months. And we're like, what the heck is happening? And, you know, and I remember our cross-line cousin said that, and I was like, we should have been. He goes, I remember when I thought that way. I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, when I realized that I should be where I'm at, and I learned to just take my eyes off myself and put it on other people and help other people, that I would be where I want to be, and I would get there when I deserve to be there. Remember, Kulia and I went home and we had a talk, and we, you know, really talked about that and said, you know, he's right. We need to stop worrying about why we aren't here and why they're not doing this and why they're not doing that. We realized that we just need to focus on what we can control, and we'll get there when we get there.
And from there, we never counted the cost.
And we never counted the cost ever again from there. And literally, I think it was 2 months after that, we ended up going into platinum qualification. Okay. So we started our platinum qualification. November of 2017. 18. Mm-hmm. And we ended up finishing.
No, 17.
Well, we actually never finished our platinum qualification. We ended up going ruby before we finished our platinum qualification, because we went November 2017, and then we went ruby in March of 2018. And, you know, it's what Trevor and Lexi have always taught us was going to happen, and we just believed it was going to happen, and we said we were going to make it happen, and we went out there, and it did. You know, so we ended up going ruby in less than 2 years. So it was like 22 months from the day that we seen this business, we went ruby, which is funny because I feel like everyone else was more excited for our victories than we were, because we didn't really feel like it was a big deal, because we kind of expected it to happen, because everything our upline told us, we just chose to believe, right? They said, if you do this, you'll get this, or you should be here. And we just believed it, you know, so we went out and did it.
We're kind of just like ignorance on fire, right?
Oh, yeah. I was the definition of ignorance on fire. Mm-hmm. Like, I literally didn't even understand the PVBV for 2 years. I remember one time, Jason Montano called me up. It was when we were new rubies. He goes, dude, what's your bonus going to look like this month? I was like, I don't know. We haven't got it yet. And he's like,
do the math.
Go do the math. He's like, you can see it. Go to the reports. Go figure it out. Go do the math. And I was like,
how do you do that?
How do you do that? I was like, I don't know how to do that. And he was like, dude, you've been in business for almost 2 years and you're a Ruby. You don't know how to do that? I was like, bro, you told me to be loyal and create a blueprint. I was like, that's what I did. I was like, I didn't understand it. I don't understand all that stuff. I was like, I'm not with all the numbers. You said be loyal, create a customer blueprint, shop from yourself. And that's what I did. And it started working out. I remember one time Kulia called me while I was at work and she goes, we got a pretty big bonus from Amway. And I was like, oh, that's cool. She goes, what's it for? And I'm like, I don't know. And she's like, do you think it was a mistake? And I was like, I don't know. She goes, should I call Amway? I'm like, don't call Amway. Don't call them.
Don't call them.
We need that. Don't call them.
We're broke.
I'm like, we need that. Don't call them. Maybe, matter of fact, transfer that to our savings account. No. So that's where we were, though. And, just goofy, man. We were just goofy kids. And so we ended up going Ruby in less than 2 years, double eagle Ruby. And then...
we spoke for the first time at family reunion.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we spoke for the first time at family reunion, which was horrible because if you backtrack, I mean, there was like Achievers we went to, that family reunion, we got in the biggest fight of our lives, I swear. That was probably that one. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we got in a huge fight. And I remember it was funny because we learned all these little lessons all throughout the way where we got this big old fight to where we almost didn't even show up to the family reunion.
We didn't?
Yeah, we almost didn't show up.
One of us was going to show up.
Okay, I want to let you know I was going to show up regardless. But anyways, I was just putting on a scene. I was, I had to make it
Yeah, he's like,
real.
I'm not going. And I was like, what do you mean you're not going? I was like, I don't have 7 more minutes of things to talk about. I was like, you have to go.
I'm like, well, figure it out then, So I'm like, you seem like you got a lot to say to me. Figure it out. No, but it was funny because I remember Glenn actually said to us, he goes, that's cute. You think it's about you. Because it's not about you. It's about those people in the stands that are waiting for you to share your story to help them understand that they can do it, right?
And we were like, oh, we're acting real selfish right now.
Yeah.
And I remember that Jason Allison took us in the back and said, can you guys just act like you love each other for just a second? Get over all the things that you're going through right now. Yeah. And it's a responsibility to be able to go out there and to be able to impact lives. And I think that was a big eye-opener for us, right? To be able to, that was a big learning point of emotional stability and still doing things that we said that we're going to do.
Yeah.
So that was huge.
Yeah, that was huge.
I think a lot of our journey you're going to hear is probably a lot of us, is our marriage, us overcoming things in our marriage, because I think that we, had our son young, we got married pretty young, and just like Maiko was talking about before, we didn't really understand what each other's values were. We didn't really understand where each other stood in a lot of different things, our parenting styles.
We loved each other. We loved the friendship we had with each other, but our values and just how we were raised was totally different. And it was hard for us to kind of mesh that together. Because I was kind of raised in more of a harder background, and Kulia was raised more in a loving background, and just how we went about things was just totally different. Yeah,
and we sat down with our upline one time, and he said, I think the only thing that's going to ever hold you back from going diamond is your marriage, right? Mm-hmm. So we had to learn how to get that on track. I mean, do you want to talk about some of the other crazy things?
Man, I remember one time at Achievers, we got in a big old fight, and I think the Olympics were next door to us, and yeah, and I remember I got so mad, and I picked up the suitcase and threw it against the wall. We got in this big old fight, and it was funny. And then we were emeralds at the time, right?
We were emeralds.
We were emeralds, and
acting like this.
Yeah, and then we walked out of the hotel, and my next door neighbor was Noella Olenek, and I literally walked, and she's like, "Hi," I'm like, "Hey, hopefully you didn't hear me throw the suitcase at the wall." Yeah, so that was phenomenal. Yeah, man, I just
in the line you were trying to take. We got in
a big argument down at the.
So if you're at Achievers in Tennessee, you might have saw that whole incident.
You know what's up. So, yeah, I mean, geez, it's so funny the things that we went through. I mean, I remember every board plan that we used to have. The cops were called. Every single board plan. Jason Montano used to drive 2 hours or drive 2 times a month, 6 hours back and forth. He still had a job too in the beginning, which was insane. And Trevor flying out, every single month, coming out and to pour into us. And we just realized, wow, what a privilege that we have to have these people come pour into us. And that's why, even though we were a young punk couple and we made a lot of mistakes and we fought all the time, we just were loyal. For us, it was like, man, it's never going to be pretty. It's never going to be the greatest, but we're always going to be there and we'll always show up.
Yeah, we're always going to show up no matter what's going on in our life, because we made the decision when we decided to get all in and be consistent, no matter what life things were happening, that we're always going to follow through. There was crazy times with, our kids getting sick and all kinds of different things.
Yeah, I mean, or even we can backtrack with the meet and greets that, meetings we did. Like sometimes I think people just think about things so much and they're so worried about doing it right. And Kulia and I, we didn't do anything right. We just did it. And, we learned along the way.
Made a mess.
We just made a mess. We heard go make a mess and we'll clean it up. And, I remember showing up to meet and greets. My very first meet and greet I actually did. I didn't even know the questions. I didn't even ask I had to ask the person I was modeling for. Like I was like, and the next question is, and he goes, free thinker. I'm like, it's, are you, and so I didn't remember the questions.
My first meet and greet, I had all my questions on my phone and it was literally 18 minutes. And I was like, okay, we're done. See ya.
Yeah. I remember arguing, almost getting in a fight with a bunch of prospects all the time, just because I didn't know how to communicate. It was totally my fault, getting in a bunch of fights. How come you just won't tell me everything? I'm like, because I don't want to. I'm like, I just argue, man. It was so funny. And I look back and I'm like, geez, I wish I could apologize to all those people. But it's okay. So, yeah, man. What else did you want to talk about?
I mean, I think that just life is so different because, you know, in the grind and when we're grinding to go double eagle ruby and grinding to go diamond, you know, not only were we were paying a price and we were making, you know, sacrifices, and I don't necessarily like to call them sacrifices. I think they're more like trade-ups or trade-offs, right? Or trade-offs and trade-ups. But, you know, like our son, he was 3-4 years old, and every time we got dressed, you know, in our business attire and business clothes, he'd be melting on the floor crying. And, you know, as a mom, that can definitely pull on your heartstrings. But I just had to remember that I was doing this for them. And I was taught, you know, Trevor and Lexi always taught us to never apologize to your kids for leaving them to go build them a better life for themselves, right? And so now it's so cool to be able to fast forward 5.5 years later, and now they're pumped. You know, they're pumped for us to be going out and helping the people and helping our best friends. And are you going and seeing, you know, Juan and Riley or Val and Shauna or Trevor and Lexi or Glenn and Joya?
They just see how different life is too, especially my oldest, because he remembers how we used to live, and he gets to experience a different lifestyle. Yeah, it's funny watching like our babysitters too. Like when they watch our kids, they're like, "Man, you got really good kids. They're just bougie. They just want like steaks and stuff all the time."
They want to eat steak all the time. But yeah, I mean, we could go on and on and on about all of the crazy things that have happened along our journey, and that's, you know, another story for another time, because we could talk about those things forever. But I think that those are the experiences that have shaped us into who we are today, and then also being able to help you guys, help you guys overcome those different types of challenges. And so, like Maiko said, life is so different now. Life is so different that we're able to just live life.
And if you walked into our house a couple years ago, man, there was dreams everywhere. Like our whole, from literally ceiling to floor. Yes, our wallpaper was just dreams that we put up. And you know, and I think that's so important. And, you know, I think a lot of people just skip over that. And for Kulia and I, it wasn't even the dream that motivated us, because honestly, it was hard for me to think about great things when I came from such a bad life. But me looking at my dream wall every day reminded me of what my goal was. And it reminded me of what I was running from. You know, so I think that was huge. You know, I think that was huge that we did. I mean, we just created an environment for ourselves to win.
We wanted to give ourselves home court advantage, basically.
Because I think a lot of people are at home, but they're playing like an away game at home. You know, and there was a lot of things that we missed. You know, I think missing some of our goals are the best things that ever happened to us. I remember when Kulia missed Lady Leadership with Julie Duncan.
Julie Duncan and Vanessa Crandall did an event for Silvers and Above out in Vegas, and it was for Silvers and Above. And Maiko and I, we were grinding, we were working hard, and
we were close to going silver.
We were close to going silver.
We went silver 10 days after it.
Yeah, and I cried myself to sleep that night, because it was one of those things that we were working so hard towards something, and we never regretted it, because we always gave it our all. But that was one time where I was just like, dang, this sucks, and I let it burn it, and I didn't roll over and just cry about it and not do anything. I actually went out and like it fired me up even more to go do something.
Yeah, 100%. Or even like Trevor, when he invited us to like see his condo at the time.
Not us. He didn't invite us.
Oh, well, he didn't invite us. He invited the double eagles.
All the double eagles.
And we had like 11 legs, and we're like, I'm going to go sponsor your grandma. If that's not, no, we didn't do that. But we didn't make it. I mean, and that just, it motivated us. It motivated us to do more. You know, it's like missing our goals were probably the best thing that ever happened to us. Yeah, and then we went Emerald, and from there,
life started to change.
Yeah, that was when I actually got to step away from my plan A, was when we were Emeralds, because of a lot of debt, when we seen this opportunity. You know, you walked away from yours, what, a year and a half after we got in business, right before we went Double Eagle Ruby.
Yeah, it's been about 4 years.
I almost thought I was going to have to go Diamond to walk away from my job. I was like, geez, man. You know, because we had so much debt that we were eradicating and paying off. What else?
I mean, it's just been crazy. Do you want to talk about maybe how we've met like some of our amazing leaders? Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. What teams do you want to talk about first?
Yeah, so kind of going off of that, we'll just talk about some of the amazing leaders that we have in our organization that we've invested time into that have helped us go Diamond, right? Yeah. So first and foremost,
absolutely.
And it's going to build some belief as well, because these conversations were not great conversations on how we met these amazing leaders in our organization. So first and foremost, our first platinum leg came from someone that I used to play basketball with.
And I actually grew up with him.
You grew up with the husband, and we were on a 90-day core run. It was late at night. We're coming back from, I think, a Brad Duncan attitude in Vegas. And I was like, shoot, like, I haven't made anyone aware. I need to follow through. And so I knew that this girl, like, worked crazy hours. And so I called her up and I was like, hey, girl. And she's like, hey. And
mind you, it's like 3 a.m.
It's like 3 in the morning. She's like, what's up? And I was like, oh, I'm just driving back from Vegas, and it's the craziest thing. And I went into sharing my story with her, and she's like, oh my gosh, I want to meet someone like that. I was like, phenomenal. I'll see what I can do, right? And so,
and so they led us.
They led us to Royal and K to Bill, which are amazing platinums in our organization, as well as MJ Ika that combines as Team 1 for us, right?
They're 2 separate legs, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Then down line from them, they have Javier Mackenzie Coles, amazing Double Eagle Rubies, and Chandler and Kelsey Pearson that are amazing platinums moving on in a huge way. So that's that first team.
The
team
second
2,
one was actually your brother.
Yeah, it came from my brother. His wife had an amazing.
I shared my story with him like a lot. He didn't get it. It's okay.
So I was like, it was one of those days where we were on a 90-day core run, and we invited them over because I'm like, we're following through.
They were coming
today.
over. I was like, I'm sharing my story with her first. She's like, no, I already called it. I
called dibs. So we shared our story with them, who then led us to Ben Tuyone, which is an amazing platinum, and Lucky Tamapeao, as well as now Nessie and
Ben
Lupi.
Tuyone, Lucky Tamapeao. Yep, and then there's a Nessie and Lupi Pilotu that are actually
finishing
in their golds right now, which they're going to be finishing up their platinum qualification, which is awesome.
Yep.
Then there's my sister, which Lose, which was phenomenal. Because I remember sharing my story with her, and she didn't get it. And her friend, I remember, it was her and her friend at the time where I was like, it was like her best friend. So I was like, let me talk to her. And I was like, move out of the way. I was like, did Los ever tell you about the people that we met? And she was like, no. And I was like, oh man, they actually showed us, And she was like, what? I want that. I want to be able to do that. So that's how that happened. And then, obviously Lose led us to Lena, fully qualified platinum. And then there's Luis, so Lena Fevaliaki and Luis Bassi, fully qualified platinums. Built this by themselves, which is just awesome. Team 4, you want to talk about Team 4?
Yeah, Team 4 comes from Mela and Nilfu Matu. This is actually one of Maiko's cousins. And again, we're trying to be consistent. And this was like probably the first or second conversation I ever had along our journey. And I went over to her house because she was selling clothes at that time. And she was like, hey, what are you buying clothes for? And I was like, oh, I just need some professional clothes because I met these like successful people. And and she's like, oh, tell me more about these successful people. And I was like, I kind of just like met these successful people and they're helping us
she's like,
become successful.
They're doing really well. She's like, what do they do? And Kulia's like, I can't tell you.
And she's like, oh my gosh, is it like a secret? And I was like, no, but I can't tell you. She's like, can I meet them? And I was like, are you sure? And she's like,
no, she said something else. She's like, is it the secret? You're like, no. She's like, well, what is it? You're like, stop asking me questions. Yeah, and then she's like, can I meet him? You're like, sure.
Yeah, and so that led us to
Melanie Fumatu and then Junior Lynette Kulu,
which are amazing platinum elites in that organization that have a huge team running alongside of them. Team 5.
Team 5 was Andrew and Amy Martin. So Andrew was actually my coworker. And he was my coworker. And I remember just calling. It was on a 90-day core run. Isn't that amazing? All these are on 90-day core runs. So
weird.
Actually, it was another one of my coworkers because I no longer worked with Andrew anymore. And I called one of them up, and I knew that they were probably out and about because we were on call all the time. And so I called him up, shared my story with him. He actually, he pursued. And then Andrew took away the phone and was like, hey, what are you guys talking about? And he was like, oh, you remember Maiko? And so Andrew got on the phone, and I shared my story with him too. So I got 2 contacts in one phone call. Sponsored both of them. The other one I initially called stepped away. And then Andrew ended up being team number 5, which was awesome. And then the last one was one of my best friends from high school, like middle school, high school. She was one of my really good friends. I shared my story with her, connected with her. She ended up getting business, and she led us to Tito and Blake Brown, which led to Stone Tia, which is a fully qualified platinum, which led to Tyler and Shelby Jensen, which are also fully qualified platinums, which is awesome. So. A lot of these conversations, guys, were not the greatest conversations. They were not the best backstories, but we did it, and that's what it comes from, is just being able to go out and share it. And you never know who's going to get what you get, right? So, but that's how that happened.
Yeah, and that's kind of like our story about where we were, where we've been, how we've met the amazing leaders in our organization, and we just know that there's so many more people running alongside of them. And, in all of Worldwide, we're just so excited to be able to see the victories that are going to happen. And so for me, I just want to end on this, and then if you have any closing words as well. But I think that it's so important to understand that you were born with the ability to change someone's life. right? And to actually go out there and to use it, to go out there and impact lives and ultimately change the world. So we're excited for you guys. We're excited to be able to hear your story on a worldwide stage, because we need that. We need to hear people's stories. That's something that was the most impactful thing for Maiko and I, is to listen to rallies and to be able to hear that everyone that you see on a stage or everyone that you see on something like this are just totally normal people, and they've gone through very similar things and challenges that you're going through as well.
Absolutely. Kulia and I, on our journey of, being able to walk away from our plan A in 3.5 years and going diamond in less than 5 years was, really a credit, to all the diamonds, all the people that have came before us, our entire upline. Because sometimes people are like, oh, how'd you guys do it so fast? I'm like, well, I kind of feel like we should have, based on the giants that came before us. And so, if there's one word to describe our journey, I would say gratitude. Even though we went through a lot of things and we overcame a lot, it's just looking back and being thankful for all the things that happened, to teach us how to be where we are now. And, it's just amazing. It's amazing how different life is. I remember when I did end up stepping away from my job, my boss, actually my resignation letter was funny, because I remember telling him, I shared my story, I told him, what was going on, that we were building something on the side so we can do that full time. And I was like, man, I'm going to be walking away from this so I can go and build my business full time. And nobody believed me. But then one day, my wife surprised me, it was awesome. And, he texted me, this is my resignation letter. He texted me, he goes,
It was like 10 a.m.
It was like 10 a.m. He goes, hey, you coming in today? That was my first day. It was my first day that I stepped into building my business full time. And I woke up at like 2 p.m. and I woke up and was like, oh, I forgot to tell you. No, I'm not. I sent him pictures from that celebration, which was awesome. But yeah, we're just grateful. We're excited. We hope anyone that's listening to our rally understands that anybody can do this. If the young punk Polynesian couple from Utah can overcome the things we've overcome and slay the giants that we've slayed, then hopefully it empowers you to realize you can do the same. So, yeah.
We love you guys.
Yeah, we love you.
The success depicted may reflect income from sources other than Amway, such as earnings from the sale of business support materials or other businesses and investments. While the techniques and approaches suggested here may have worked for others, no one can guarantee they will work for you. We want to make sure and emphasize that success is not achieved in this business without hard work. Worldwide Group is an optional training and support system designed to help build your Amway independent business. Eagle and Double Eagle are Worldwide Dream Builders recognitions and are not part of the IBO compensation plan. The Amway Independent Business Owner Compensation Plan offers monthly and annual bonuses that IBOs can earn in accordance with their contract with Amway. IBOs also may qualify for the Amway Growth Incentives Program, a collection of discretionary programs separate from the IBO compensation plan, which may vary from year to year. IBO eligibility for the GI program is at Amway's discretion. The GI program is available only to IBOs in good standing and those whose conduct demonstrates high ethical and business standards aligned with the goals and objectives of Amway and its related businesses. The average monthly gross income for active IBOs was $207 US and 186 Canadian dollars. Approximately 48% of all IBOs in the US and 52% of IBOs in Canada were active. IBOs were considered active in months in 2016 when they attempted to make a retail sale, or presented the Amway IBO compensation plan, or received bonus money, or attended an Amway or IBO meeting. If someone sustained that level of activity every month for a whole year, their annualized gross income would be $2,484 US and 2,232 Canadian dollars. Of course, not every IBO chooses to be active every month. Gross income means the amount received from retail sales minus the cost of goods sold, plus monthly bonuses and cash incentives. It excludes all annual bonuses and cash incentives, and all non-cash awards, which may be significant. There may also be significant business expenses, mostly discretionary, that may be greater in relation to income in the first years of operation. There may also be significant business expenses, mostly discretionary, that may be greater in relation to income in the first years of operation. For the purposes of the calculation in Canada, individuals who were IBOs for less than the entire year in 2016 were excluded. Following are approximate percentages of IBOs in North America who achieved the illustrated levels of success in the performance year ending August 31st, 2018. Platinum, 0.3952%. Founders Platinum, 0.7557%. Ruby, 0.0050%. Founders Ruby, 0.0117%. Sapphire, 0.0391%. Founders Sapphire, 0.0484%. Emerald, 0.0397%. Founders Emerald, 0.0841%. Diamond, 0.0210%. Founders Diamond, 0.0117%. Executive Diamond and above, 0.0150%. New Platinum Conference, 0.1853%. Achievers Invitational, 0.6746%. Diamond Club, 0.0467%. Executive Diamond Club, 0.0157%. Diamond Dreams, 0.0207%. NA Growth Council, 0.0100%. For more details on qualifying for the GI program and the requirements for good standing, see information on Amway.com or contact Amway Sales.